So how you doing today, Steve?
Good, Pat.
Good. Um, the Meg hits theaters August 10th, but this is, it's been something that's been kind of a long journey for this film. It must be extremely gratifying to finally have it, hitting the big screen this year. What has that journey been like? And, was there ever a time that you were worried the film wouldn't be released?
Well, Meg was originally optioned by Hollywood Pictures back in 1996, but they went through two subpar scripts, and then the president of the studio lost his job, and so that sent the project in reversion and the rights back to me. Nothing happened until 2004 when we took the project to New Line Cinema, and they optioned it, but they added a new screenwriter who basically wrote his own story that was not very good. And the project languished at New Line for a couple of years until they released it. And so once I got it back again, I optioned it to producer Belle Avery, who her forte is raising money. And using a script that we had worked on together, she was able to raise $150 million. And we took that package to Warner Brothers, who optioned it along with Gravity Pictures.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a long, it's been a long journey. Just was there ever any, time like I mentioned that you were thinking that maybe, this wasn't gonna come out or any doubts?
I was concerned when it was a New Line because the script was so bad that I thought it would kill the project, to be honest. But fortunately, we were able to get out of that deal and onto a much better script.
Good. Well, yeah, like you said, more than 20 years ago now is when the first book was released. Just how would you compare, the release of that, the first book to now having the release of the first movie? How are the two different? Obviously, must both be, both were very exciting for you, I imagine.
They're both exciting. With a book, of course, it's you have more say in it, you have more control. But they're both very exciting, and the picture looks great from the trailers.
And that kind of, leads into, my next question, actually. What has your involvement been like in the film, and how has it changed over the years?
Well, from an author's standpoint, you really don't get much control after you option a movie, the rights to your book. But fortunately, I'm good friends with the lead producer, Belle Avery. So, I trust her to safeguard the project's integrity and the novel's integrity too.
Now, have you, just curious, have you gotten a chance to see any cuts of the film so far?
No, just the trailers.
Okay. When, just, curious too, when will you be first seeing the film? Same day as like the fans, or any advanced screening?
My family and I are going to the premiere on Monday in Los Angeles.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, no, that must be exciting. I know I've seen a couple different areas that have some advanced screening. So I'm definitely pretty excited for it. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Oftentimes it's hard to adapt a book, to film properly. Have you ever been worried that I mean, you kind of talked about it actually a little bit, worried that the movie would venture too far from, what the source material was?
Well, again, just that, there was some concerns at one point, because the biggest thing is that they have to get the shark right.
Yeah.
And then they have to get the tone right of the movie, the actors, and Warner Brothers and the producers in charge and director John Turteltaub were able to do a great job with that.
Okay. And now, what was it that initially just, interested you in writing a book and then eventually, a whole series about sharks in the first place?
When I was 15, I saw Jaws, and that got me hooked into great whites and stories about them, and Peter Bench's book. And then when I was 35, 20 years later, I had read a Time magazine article on the Mariana Trench, And the article talked about hydrothermal vents and life at the bottom of the ocean. And it sort of planted a seed with me. And I thought, it might be neat if that shark that I read about when I was younger, the prehistoric cousin of the great white, was still alive down there. And so I went to the library and did some research for about 3 weeks and decided I was going to write this book.
Now, Meg, was it always intended to be a series? Did you have, I know, sequels kind of planned, or was that just something that kind of came, as you wrote the book?
Well, when I wrote the first book, I left the window open for a sequel. I just didn't think I was going to be working on it so quickly.
And then, just why do you think that, obviously, you said yourself you saw Jaws, and that really got you your interest. But why do you think people are so fascinated with the sharks? I mean, now we have Shark Week, and you have countless different movies and books that have come out. So why do you think that people are just so fascinated with these creatures?
Well, you're talking about something that can eat you, literally. And in the ocean, humans don't have much coordination, and we're certainly not as fast as a shark. So, we're sort of at a disadvantage because we're in their territory.
Yep.
And although most sharks are not man-eaters or interested in humans at all, the ones that are pretty scary.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'd say I've not one time. I remember seeing Jaws for the first time, and I didn't, I did not want to go in the water for a little while afterwards. So, as you mentioned, you read Jaws, were heavily inspired by that. I'm just kind of curious, who are some of your other major influences? And it doesn't even have to be just authors, but anyone else too. And just why is that?
Well, I grew up as a teenager reading the James Bond series by Ian Fleming. I love vampire stories, Anne Rice, Bram Stoker's Dracula. I enjoy sports biographies as well, and really sci-fi, like the kind that I write.
Yep. Okay. And what is your process like as an author? When starting to work on a new book, and has that changed at all from when you first started to at this point in your career?
Whenever I start a new book, I always begin with a sort of a basic outline that's sort of seeded from the research itself, and the research is ongoing throughout the book. But it will also flesh out the bones of the story.
Okay, and has from when you first started, has that changed at all compared to writing a book like now?
No, it's pretty consistent.
Okay. Now you have a very dedicated and loyal fan base, referred to as Megheads, and have made some of them into characters, in a couple of your books. When did you decide to start doing that, and how has your relationship with the fans, evolved over the years?
When I wrote Meg, for minor characters, I sort of selected names from people that I was friends with in high school or college. And then with The Trench, the second book, anyone who had given Meg a bad review, they got eaten. But then I sort of ran out of names, and so I opened it up to my fans, and they really enjoyed it. And so prior to writing each new book, I will put out a fan contest to be characters in the story. And over the years, it's really evolved, and each book has about 50 or 60 characters, names of real fans, and their bios. And oddly enough, it's become a status to be eaten by a megalodon in one of my books.
That's pretty funny. No, wasn't familiar with that. So, I mean, it's good, that you have such, a great relationship with the fans, and put some of them into your books. That's you don't see that with a lot of different people. So it's good to you have that kind of that finger on the pulse with the audience. As you mentioned before, you do a lot of research for your books. Compared to that first book, where the internet really wasn't as big obviously as it is now. How has your research kind of changed, if any at all?
Well, the internet makes it much easier to find small details about every little thing, and that's important for me because my books tend to be faction or a mix of fact and fiction, and I really do sweat the details to get the story right. So the internet is, the best tool that I have for doing investigative research.
And no, I think that that's definitely something that stands out. Um, Now, originally, your book, Meg Generations, was going to be the finale in the series, from what I read. But while writing that, you mentioned how you came up, on a great idea that would kind of lead to a new book. Could you give fans any preview of what to expect with Meg Purgatory, and any idea when that will be released?
Well, I haven't started writing it yet, so I'm not sure when I'll start writing it, either in September or uh, perhaps a year from September. I want to sort of take a look at some other options that are going on for some of my other projects that I may do a follow up book on.
Okay, so that's just kind of that's in like the very very early stages right now.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And actually, speaking of some of your other projects, one of your other books, The Lock, has been in talks of being developed for the big screen as well. Do you have any? What's like the latest information you have on that?
Uh, the first draft of the script has been done, and we're working with the writer right now to tighten it down, and we'll see what happens. But it looks good so far.
Excellent. Well, that's great to hear. It sounds like with Meg, from all the hype that this has, it seems like you guys should have a hit on your hands. So I'm definitely interested to see what this would look like on the big screen as well. I actually have a fan question from one of your Megheads, Rob Schur. He actually wanted to ask, he mentioned Dog Training, the American Male, written under the pen name L.A. Knight, is a hilarious, laugh out loud comedy, and such a departure from your other novels. Are there any plans to write any more comedy novels down the road?
Well, as we sit here, I'm actually working on the adaptation for the script. I do have a couple other scripts that are comedies that I'd like to pursue once Dog Training is optioned. Hopefully, it'll be optioned.
Okay. And is there any other genres that you're looking to, tackle as well, other than just, comedy and sci-fi?
No, I think that covers it for me.
All right. And interesting, question for you. If someone wasn't familiar with, hadn't read any of your books, which one would you have them read first, and why is that?
Well, it's up to them what they're interested in. If they like sharks, then obviously the Meg series. If they like uh, other types of creatures, then you have The Lock. If you're more into political thrillers, then The Shell Game. If you're into horror, Grim Reaper.
So yeah,
But I've got quite a few books out there now.
I was gonna say, yeah, you have a pretty good selection from a couple different areas for people to choose from. So, um, now you founded the Adopt the Author program. For those who aren't familiar, what that is all about. Can you kind of just go into that a little bit?
Yeah, back when Meg first came out in '97, I started getting inundated with emails from teenagers, and they were all basically saying the same thing, that they hated to read, but they really enjoyed reading Meg. And for many of them, Meg was the first book they ever finished. And then teachers started emailing me and telling me that they were using the book in the classroom. And then I found out that Meg had been named one of the top selections by the Young Adult Library Services Association. And I realized that something was happening that needed my involvement. And so I set up a nonprofit called Adopt an Author. And for teachers who want to register, it's free. We provide tests, quizzes, curriculum materials, posters for the classroom, and direct contact with the authors and the students, whether it's by email or Skype or in-class calls or personal visitations. And we pay for everything. And what's really important about the program is it gets students to read because it makes reading fun.
Now, when something, like that happens, as an author, just as a human being, you know, what, what did you think when you started getting, all those emails and messages from, kids, from teachers, and, knowing that your books had such a, profound effect on all these people's lives?
Well, it's something I wasn't expecting at first, but then I realized that you know it's really is a great subject for teens, and the key to reading is it has to be made fun. And what surprised me is that the teachers were actually using the same books that they had used when I was a student. Wuthering Heights, Scarlet Letter,
Yep.
Romeo and Juliet, and those books are not going to be easily identified with students these days. It wasn't back when I was a student.
Yep. I was
So if you can give them something interesting to read that they really enjoy, that's how you get a student to read.
No, I agree with that. I was like, growing up myself, yeah, the pretty much those same books that you mentioned were still in there, and I think that yeah, if you have something, have to be able to, give something that the audience, can kind of relate to and, put themselves into that I think they'll find, a little bit more enjoyment in it. So that makes sense. Now, with the Meg finally hitting theaters, having multiple best-selling books, are there any other goals that you're still looking to accomplish, with your career?
Um, uh, yeah, there's a number of career goals. I want to start some other series. I want to get other movies made, TV as well. But and I want to expand the adopted author program.
Okay. All right. And just kind of a a question because I like to ask and understand kind of the processes behind whether it be authors, actors, just do you ever get writer's block as an author, and just what is some advice for dealing with that?
I think writer's block is something that is sort of an excuse for running out of information, and you run out of information because you haven't done the research. So the cure to writer's block is to just go research your topic.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, you yourself, you do so much research on your books, and so you have a good, good amount of stuff to pick from. So, now, Steve, do you have anything, that you want to, tell the fans out there, and, where can they, find more information on you?
Yeah, my publisher, A&M Publishing, just released a brand new version of the Meg, a movie edition with the movie cover and a prequel called Meg Origins and 18 original graphic arts images. And it's the best version of Meg out there. It just came out. So just ask for it by name, The Meg by Steve Alten, and it's in bookstores now.
All right. Well, thank you, Steve, again for, taking the time out of your schedule to sit down with me, come on here, Pop Culture with Pat. I really appreciate that.
No, I appreciate you.
Thank you. Well, congratulations again on the movie being released, and I'll keep an eye out for those the couple other things, the Lock, the movie, and your couple other books.
Sounds good, Pat.
Have a good one.
You too.